Ukraine is on the verge of a change of guard. Zelenskyy is about to resign. Is this news true or false? The report first originated from Russia Today, which claimed that Petrov, chief strategic advisor to the office of the Ukrainian president, revealed that Zelenskyy would resign on New Year's Eve. Ukrainian member of parliament Dmytruk also confirmed that the top leadership had ordered Zelenskyy to resign, spinning the story in vivid detail. However, this news has now been deleted. The reason is simple. The source is unreliable. It has been verified that there is no position of chief strategic advisor to the office of the Ukrainian president in Ukraine at all. You can also recall in the 3 years and 10 months since the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Have you ever heard of this position or the person named Petrov? Additionally, Dmytruk is a former Ukrainian MP wanted by Ukraine who fled the country long ago. Given his status, he has no access to any orders from the top leadership, and his words are even less credible. Furthermore, for such a bombshell news story, Ukraine's own media outlets and Western media such as the Kyiv Independent, Reuters, AFP, and AP have not reported a word about it. Now that this news has been taken down, whether the claim of Zelenskyy's resignation is true or false speaks for itself. The news itself contains many illogical flaws. Firstly, the so-called top leadership obviously implies the White House, but Ukraine is an independent country. The White House cannot, nor does it have the right to order Zelenskyy to resign. If it were during Biden's presidency, one might say there was a glimmer of possibility. After all, the United States was Ukraine's largest aid provider and backer at that time, but now, the United States has long stopped providing aid to Ukraine. The only support it offers is agreeing to let Europe fund the purchase of weapons for Ukraine. Such influence is not sufficient to pressure Zelenskyy to resign from within Ukraine, let alone order him to do so. As we all know, in February this year, after Zelenskyy and Trump argued at the White House, the Trump camp did briefly want to replace Zelenskyy, but the method they used was nothing more than privately contacting Valery Zelenskyy, the former commander-in-chief and chief of the Ukrainian armed forces, trying to pull strings behind the scenes. Secondly, there is probably no one willing to take Zelenskyy's place now. To be honest, the position of Ukrainian president is now a hot potato. It's simply like sitting on the edge of a volcano. If the war continues, the pressure on the president himself will be enormous. If he wants to stop the war, Russia is demanding territorial concessions. No matter what he does, it's a difficult choice. Thirdly, although both Russia and presumably Trump see Zelenskyy as an obstacle to reaching a peace agreement and want him to step down, even if Zelenskyy steps down, would the person who takes over be willing to make territorial concessions? Obviously, that's unrealistic. The war has lasted 3 years and 10 months, and Ukraine has made tremendous sacrifices to safeguard its territorial integrity. At this point, anyone who signs an agreement on territorial concessions will be standing against the Ukrainian people. No one is willing to take on this blame. However, Zelenskyy is indeed under immense pressure now. A few days ago, European leaders held another phone call with Zelenskyy. Angela Merkel, the former German chancellor, specifically reminded Zelenskyy, "They are playing power games, you must be careful." European leaders unanimously issued a warning to Zelenskyy, stating that the White House might betray Ukraine. They reminded him not to agree to any of Russia's demands before obtaining firm security guarantees from the United States. Currently, the only one Ukraine and Zelenskyy can trust and rely on is Europe. The two sides have become a community of shared interests. Europe will not abandon Ukraine, nor will it abandon Zelenskyy. Remarks made by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz earlier represent Europe's stance. Ukraine's defeat will not be permitted under any circumstances. On the battlefield today, while Ukraine is in a relatively passive position, it is far from reaching the point of exhaustion. Just as Trump vigorously promotes his peace plan, Europe and other NATO allies have launched a new round of intensive aid to Ukraine. The European Union has urgently provided $700 million in financial support to Ukraine. Australia has announced a $95 million military aid package for Ukraine. Germany has specifically earmarked $11.5 billion in military aid for Ukraine in its newly approved 26th federal budget. Sweden has also announced that it will drastically cut aid to African countries in the coming years, diverting all of the approximately $860 million in saved funds to support Ukraine. Beyond providing aid themselves, Europe has set its sights on Russia's seized assets. The Times reports that Britain is in discussions with the European Union, Canada, and other partners to transfer $130 billion worth of frozen Russian assets to Ukraine. If all parties reach a consensus, this fund will meet to -1/3 of Ukraine's official needs over the next 2 years. In other words, Ukraine still has allies behind it and can receive strong support. The war is far from being decided. At a time like this, if Trump wants Zelenskyy to step down, Europe will undoubtedly be the first to oppose it.